The METUS Tech Show.
Welcome to the METUS Tech Show, a show for HVAC professionals by HVAC professionals.
I like how you guys bounce back and forth between heat pump talk and food talk.
The METUS Tech Show.
Mitsubishi.
Hey, Don, welcome back, and thanks for being here. We were talking a little bit ago about chili. I understand you're some sort of an aficionado on chili, or at least a fan. So what's your favorite kind of chili? Where's the best chili you've had? Because I could talk about chili all day.
Yeah. It's going to be hard for me to say where's the best chili because they all kind of run together. But big fan. The key thing for me with chili is I like the meat and beans in it. I know that's not a Texas thing. There's always a dispute about that, but I like it thick as much as possible. Just a little bit of seasoning to make it just a little warm, not too bad. But I'll try everyone's chili. Long story short, starting out years ago when I started traveling pretty regularly, I would try everyone's chili. If I saw chili on the menu, I would get it almost like a salad, if you will. And in some cases, if I thought there was too much food when I was ordering, I would take a cup or something with me to go along with my lunch to eat later on. So I really love chili, eat it all the time at home. I'm just a big fan of chili in general. But I always intrigued by all the different variations that are out there and all over the place. And it's one of those things, like for me anyways, it's like pizza. You know, if there's sauce on it, I never really had a bad pizza. I know that's hard to believe, but I really like pizza, and I feel the same way about chili. I don't know how to explain it. I've never not finished a bowl of chili, if you will.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, even the worst chili I've ever had, I've eaten everything. I've finished it, and we were talking. It's like lasagna. It's like pizza. Everyone is just a little bit different. Yes. My favorite. I think I have. I agree with you. It's hard to have a favorite chili, but I've had it with different kinds of meats. You know, of course, ground beef is my favorite. I've had it with one guy. He's actually a professional chef. He made a brisket chili. Oh. All right, and then there's short rib chilies, all kinds of things. White chicken chili is my wife. She likes that, but I don't consider that chili. That's a whole different thing. It's got to have a tomato base to be chili. I agree with you on the beans. You know, I like the beans in the chili. Scott hates beans, and if you go to Texas, they shoot you, I think, if you get beans in the chili.
Yes. Oh, they do.
Wait, Texas, what, they like beans? Or
No, there's no, in Texas chili, there's no beans in real chili.
I think chili comes with no beans. You say chili, I'm thinking no beans.
Yeah, so I don't mind the beans. Yeah. I could either way. It has to have the flavor. What beans
are there? Like, what?
No, it's just it's not overwhelming with beans, but it's the flavor it's the right amount of spices, the right amount of heat. I came in. Was it in October? I won second place at a cook-off at a church in Newton, Massachusetts. That I was a guest. That's not my church, but I went there. They invited me to this chili cook-off, and I put my homemade peppers in there. And I told them it's going to be a 5-alarm chili. It's and there were people there who they think mayonnaise is spicy, like my in-laws. They think mayonnaise is spicy. They don't like spice at all. So I said, if you think mayonnaise is spicy, this is not the chili for you. But I won second place. But in my opinion, I should have won third place. And person who wasn't even in the top 3 should have won first. And the person who won first should have won second. My opinion, if I was the judge, but I wasn't judging. Anyway, welcome everybody to the METUS Tech Show. Joining us today remotely from Ohio is Don Gillis with Chemours. Don, how you doing?
Really, really well today. Yes, beautiful sun's out here in Ohio. We're going to hit 40 degrees, and we haven't seen sun in a while, so I'm excited.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we hit 40 degrees in Boston, I think, that a couple of days ago. First time in like a week and a half, it got above freezing, so that was great. Yeah. Also with me in studio is Scott Tallman. Scott, say hi.
Hey, guys. Hello.
So, Don, we had you on our show back in May, and you told us a little bit about the A2Ls, what to expect, what's coming down the road. And we wanted to have you back on because now that the A2Ls are here for all intents and purposes, it's past January. We cannot manufacture, we cannot import any 410A equipment. So I kind of wanted to have you back on. Tell us some of the lessons you've learned, anything that's new. How is everything going with the A2L transition? So I don't know where to start, but wherever you want to start is okay with me.
Yeah. Well, there's plenty of knowledge out there, and it is getting much better. Classes are not just our classes, anyone's classes, whether it's ACA, RSES, NATE, ESCO, anyone. So I want to be fair about this. There's a lot of training going on. All you have to do is go on LinkedIn or anything like that, and you'll see all these classes and instructors. So it's all branched down, not just from Chemours, but it's going well as far as everybody adopting to it. I personally have never had any pushback in a class. If it's been really nice, a great experience for me because everyone knows that I have a background in being out in the field. And I think they understand that, I'm the messenger. And but as far as taking that, I think the first step was, to be honest with you, Scott, is just to remove that fear of the unknown. And that flammability thing was really causing a lot of trouble. So breaking it down to a technician, first and foremost, that there's no propane in it. I know that sounds silly to you guys, but and then actually showing them what's in it. And that the majority of, let's say, 454B is actually what's in 410A, which is R32, by the way.
Right. And
then taking the other, component, which is 1234YF, the HFO molecule, and adding to it, which has been every car that's been made, new car that's been made in the last 8 years has 1234YF in the hood. It eases their mind a lot. We're driving around with it and what have you. So, good practices moving forward, like we discussed last time, that's the key. And when people see, I often say before I start the class, if you came here for a huge wow factor, you're probably going to be disappointed, and that's the truth.
Yeah, and that's what I keep telling people. I go, this is not a big deal compared. I don't even know how long ago it was. I was new in the industry when we went from 22 to 410A, and maybe I had a couple of years under my belt. I don't remember what year it was, but that was a big deal because of the pressure difference.
Correct.
But now we're not talking about a pressure difference, the flammability, and there's still, Don, and I know I see your posts on social media, there's still a lot of misinformation out there. People still think there's propane in this refrigerant, and that just gets me. It's like, where is this coming from?
Yeah.
Well, because they see that A2L, right? And so that's where that misconception comes in place, where they think propane, they think it's automatically flammable. So that's where my best guess would be.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think we as an industry, and I don't want to point fingers here, but I think when this first started unraveling, the way the EPA saw it was flammable refrigerants, and flammable is flammable. So this is just the Don Gillis opinion. I think from what I saw, if you back up a long ways ago, even when I was at Copeland, the A3s and A2Ls were commonly taught together. And when I started seeing webinars and podcasts and things like that, no matter how good that organization was, they still paired them together. Not that they were saying they're the same, but I think that's where it started the confusion. Another theory I have is there's a word that's propylene, and it's on the label. I've had people shoot this to me before from even over Europe, and you said there was no propane, and right here it's on your label, and but it's propylene, not propane, and I think there was some confusion there also, and then last but not least, as you all know, you can go to YouTube or anywhere like that and find almost anything you want to. If you see somebody showing a video of a mini split blowing up, that's the Bible sometimes, unfortunately, but that's not the case.
Yeah, just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah.
The conspiracy theories. Yeah. And what do you think, Don, if you have one, what is the biggest surprise? What surprised you the most about this transition?
For me, I think it's just learning to really getting back to the basics, kind of going back to where my roots were at the very beginning. I think I just got over 33 years now, and 25 of those was in a truck. So going back to the roots and the best practices, and I hate to beat a dead horse here, but when I started unraveling this thing, like what's changing, ASHRAE 15 is commercial, 15.2 is residential. And started digging through what was changing. Obviously, UL plays a part in that safety of the equipment. It started looking hauntingly familiar from what we were already doing. I mean, take pressurize the line sets and things like that. But now they're requiring you to hold that for 60 minutes, and that's new to me. We always are. Most of us, I think, all of us that used good practices pressurize our line set, but I don't believe, at least under the international mechanical codes, which I'm licensed under, never specifically said it's 30 minutes, it's 45 minutes. So that's something new there, checking that out. The newness to some folks, using what we call striker plates or nail guards on new installations, on new construction, what have you. We've been using them for a long time under the IMC. And it just little things like that I guess I was already kind of used to, using a vacuum pump. One of the things that we're really, really encouraging everyone to do, it's always been good practice to hook the nitrogen up after you cut the line open and to remove any residual refrigerant. And I'm not talking about brazing with it. I'm talking about removing that residual and refrigerant out of there. But a lot of people didn't realize that was always good practice. Now it's required. Now, as I say in class, before you ask me, I'm not sure who's going to police that, but just know that that's part of the new installation practice with A2L refrigerants. So, if I had to throw something at the wall and make it stick, Scott, it would be the biggest surprise to me is honestly the adoption of it. I think there's always the fear of the unknown, and I went into it originally pretty easy here at Chemours, but going out from my previous job, prior job, I was worried about this is all this and that, and blame was going every different direction. And I've been very lucky in the sense that people have really came wanting to learn. I never seen anybody fall asleep in any of my classes where they could have easily done that. So I honestly just the accepting it, the way it's been going on and the people coming up and saying nice things afterwards. It's not been what I think most people would think it was going to be. It's just not been. And that's my personal opinion on what I've experienced.
That's an interesting observation, because as I think about the transition from 22 to 410A, there was a lot of angry people out there. I'm an old guy now. I've been in the business just about as long as you have, and most of that was in a truck as well. But I don't know how many years I had in the business when we switched to 410A, but it wasn't many. It was 2 or 3, maybe 5 at the most. But some of the veterans, I'll call them, were mad. They were angry when we went to that transition. And I didn't realize it until you just mentioned it, but I don't see that with this. I don't see people getting aggravated and bad-mouthing it and this is, and saying this is BS or whatever. So it's interesting, an interesting observation there.
Yeah, you just struck a thought, brought a memory back. I remember getting called in the night before we were going to do this training for, at the time they were referring to it as Puron. That was the name, right, that Carrier had given to it. So anyways, we go there. They told us we're going to get trained on this new R410A. And the guy from wholesaler got up in front. There was about 20 some of us. We were in our work clothes, obviously, in the sheet metal room. The people that were standing behind me, the 2 or 3 senior people that were, older than I am even now, some of them, but the wealth of knowledge in the company, if you will, the people that I was learning from and absorbing everything that they know, they had so much knowledge. This is before smartphones and you couldn't Google anything, right? So they're standing behind me as this guy that I don't know in khaki pants and looks like a sales guy is telling me, you got to purge with nitrogen now, and you got to do this and you got to do that. And all I'm hearing them is gravel behind me and stuff. Oh, they told us that with R22. And I remember going out of the parking lot that day, and we were all loading our trucks and, had a cigarette in our mouth and coffee and looking at each other like, I'm not putting that stuff in my truck. Did you see those pressures? But the funny thing about my mentors saying about not brazing with that, we didn't understand POE oil. POE oil really changed the industry, and it really, and the TXV combination was a real learning curve for most of us. And that was I took that on the chin a couple times, more than a couple times, to be honest with you. So it's funny now, but I agree with you, Scott. It was way more pushback. I've often said, and we're on a podcast now, and I'll say it, I've said this in very large rooms in Vegas and warehouses and everywhere around the nation, that I truly believe that it was a bigger change from R22 to 410A than it is from 410A to, like, say, R454B or even R32. It doesn't matter. If you look at the molecule, and I don't want to get all science here, but if you look at the molecule, it's literally an HFC in disguise. If you remove one of those carbon atoms, it's an HFC. The only difference here is they put those together and discover that it breaks up faster in the atmosphere, and the EPA is driving it, and there's no way around it. And by removing that R125 and 410A, which half of it's R125, the only purpose of that, or the two biggest reasons for that in there, if I didn't tell you the last time, was you find that chemical in fire extinguishers, and it also keeps the discharge line cooler, because R32 naturally runs a little warmer than most refrigerants. Okay, so it's a fire extinguisher. So we didn't really add anything that was flammable. We removed the fire extinguisher, which, by the way, was 1,400 of the 2,000 GWPs, which the EPA is going, hey,
yeah, right.
So that's why it's mildly flammable. But if you look at the flame comparison, which I know you've seen many a times, it just broke that template that they've used for years on flammability. So, I mean, it was so close, they had to make a new classification.
Yeah, yeah, it's close
Instead
enough.
of saying 1.5, it's A2L.
Yeah, and they've been using it in Europe for a while now, and as far as I know, there's not a building or a house blowing up every day or catching fire because of this. But and I agree with you. The 410A switch over from 22 was a much bigger deal. But I want to go back to something you just said about. I want to talk about the oil, the POE oil. Is the POE oil in 454B or 32 for that matter? Are they the same as each other, and are they the same as 410A?
We'll be right back. Hey, listeners. If you like the METUS Tech Show, you should check out our YouTube channel called the METUS Training Network. That's METUS Training Network. Head on over to the METUS Training Network for tons of videos and programming made for HVAC professionals just like you. We've got technical training tips, HVAC program updates, and episodes of our new HVAC talk show called The Comfort Zone. Of course, you also get to catch up on more episodes of the METUS Tech Show as well. Head on over to YouTube and subscribe to the METUS Training Network today. Now, back to the METUS Tech Show.
So that's a great question and something we teach, obviously. But yeah, so moving from 410A, the 410A and the 454B are identical. It's POE 32. Going back to what I said earlier, R32, not that it's a bad thing, it runs a little warmer and the pressure's just a little higher. So it's a POE 46, if that makes sense to you. So, the number one reason for compressors to fail, because this is all about compressors when it comes to the oil, is overheat. Okay. And so you get up there too hot, you start to lose your lubricity and you cause friction. So it's just like a truck or a car, no difference than we're not used to already. Runs a little hotter, higher viscosity. That's all it is. But yeah, as far as 410A, R410A and R454B, they are both POE 32.
And the other one for 32 was POE?
POE 46.
46. Okay.
46. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And you can go to any compressor manufacturer and find this information. I'm going to throw Copeland a shout out if you don't mind. You can go to their website, or you can just Google AE Bulletin, Application Engineers Bulletin 93-11. It happens to be theirs. And you can look up all the oils and any compressors and where you can use them at and what application.
Nice.
Excellent. Good to know.
So, Don, to kind of sidetrack the conversation, actually, I was reading one of your LinkedIn posts. Can you provide a better explanation for the EPA update as far as, because what we get in a lot of my classes is, are we going to have to get additional certification for, for the A2L refrigerant? Can you speak more on that?
I can. It's a little bit of a slippery slope, because first of all, I want to say I and Chemours obviously encourage training. Okay.
Yes.
I want to make sure. And it took we were really good about, when we set this training up, when they, started this program and I got involved, is trying to get some kind of certificate until we saw what the EPA was going to do. With that said, we did get one. It went through, all the red tape and what have you internally to where we could hand it out saying you went to it. And that pretty much is what everyone is giving you out there. So there's nothing, the EPA is not requiring a special training. The way I understand it, and it could change in 6 months. Who knows if something, goes awry. But right now, the EPA is not requiring you to retest if you've already got an EPA 608 card for just A2Ls. Okay. So it mimics the same way we did 410A. Moving forward, there'll be A2L questions on those tests the same way it was before. Okay. But as far as me today, now, I can't speak for all wholesalers and municipalities. I want to make that very clear. I can't speak for, but as far as the federal, state level, I know of nothing. But I've been told, and the only reason I'm sharing this with you, I've been told by some third parties that, some wholesalers may require you to have training at their facility or whatever in order to buy it from them. Okay. But honestly, I have not had any fact check that or had anybody tell me that that's a fact. I have not had any wholesalers or distributors. Everyone that I've worked with, and I've worked with almost all of them, has not told me they were required. It's all volunteer basis. So hopefully I did you justice in that explanation.
Yeah, no, yes. Then that's actually important too, because we didn't know. So I think 6 months ago or a year ago, I had my team get a certification online, and you guys offer it, like you mentioned, ACA and ESCO, they do all these things. But because we didn't know, there was no harm in going and getting this done. Whatever the cost of the training was, it was minimal. Yeah. Rather have it than not have, because it's just like the EPA at last minute, 11th hour to say, oh yeah, you need this training or you can't buy, A2L refrigerant. And that's what I expected. But I think they've come to their senses and they treat it just like any other transition. This is, if you get your EPA type 2 or universal, you're good. There's nothing else you need to do. As of right now, knowing the government, they could change their mind. But as of right now, we're good.
Yeah, but as to Don's point, right? It doesn't hurt for extra training. No,
the training is excellent. The training is a very good idea to understand the refrigerant, because what we're finding out is there's a lot of restrictions that we never had before. I'm putting a mini split unit in there. Now I have to be a certain distance up off the floor. And these are things that, I have to, and these are the industry standards, is what are we going to do if there is a leak? What's mitigation. The equipment going to do? That's mitigation. It's look, I mean, see if I can say this without sounding crazy, but it's the same thing with a propane furnace versus a natural gas furnace. And I'm going back many years, so I'm hoping what I'm saying is right. But if I remember correctly, a propane furnace, after it didn't ignite a certain number of times, would lock out, where the gas furnace would keep trying to ignite a little more. It was a requirement for a propane, but not for natural gas, because the propane is heavier. But if there's a leak, but when the furnace fails to ignite, the fan comes on. The inducer stays on. Let's move the air. Let's get it out of there just in case. It is a just in case, and it's an abundance of caution. I think an overabundance of caution is what I would say, because, the comparisons I've heard is it's about as flammable as green wood. Go chop down a tree and try to light it in your fireplace. See if you get that fire going. Of course, I'm pulling out the turbo torch.
Right. You have these YouTube videos I've seen people trying to light certain refrigerants.
Yeah, so and it's too bad that there's misinformation out there. Because it really doesn't help anybody, and somebody's going to see it and believe it. And with AI things, you can make things look real that aren't anymore.
Just like anything in our industry, or anything as a whole, right? Yeah. They're not going to remember the good; they only remember the bad.
I think it's human nature to find fault in something. Everybody was, wanted to shoot a hole in something. And unfortunately, as you touched on, Paul, how can I word this? There's some bad actors out there that want to, they have an agenda, if you will, to want to, do that. So I want to back up a little bit because you said some things. The EPA card, really, what is it for? I mean, and I know you all know this, but it's really about transportation and working with it and carrying it and buying it and storing it and what have you. That it's not really about, how to charge, that's part of the questions, but that's really what it's telling you. You can handle it. You can handle it. Right?
Exactly.
So if you take a look at the vans, what the changes in the vans, still 440 pounds capacity in individual containers. It could be 440 pounds of acetylene, which is way more flammable. Nothing's changed there. No placards on service trucks. No ventilation of any kind. These are all myth busters we had to go through and put this fire out. And then last but not least, the tanks are allowed to be laid on their side and they're not vertical. There was a lot of that scuttlebutt going on out there. So that tells me that's a good sign. You know what I mean? Nothing's changed there. And Chemours, myself included, obviously, we are very, very pro for training. We, in fact, I'm just going to say it. We are so adamant about training that we don't even charge for it. And you might be buying somebody else's product. I mean, we don't know. You show up for the class. If the wholesaler allowed you in and come in there, we hope you're buying our product. But honestly, we're here to educate you because we know the importance of education. And to give you a little history about myself, I did the same thing you did, Paul. When I was at my prior job, I took the ACA A2L test. I took the ESCO test. I took anything that was available out there while we were working on getting ours. So I, too, was preparing myself personally for personal. Not to teach it, but for personal gain. So, a big advocate of the training. So I want to make that very clear.
Yep, it doesn't hurt. Even if you don't need it, it doesn't hurt. It's knowledge that's going to help you do your job better. And my goal for 2025 is to go sit in on one of your classes. Now, because I'm cheap, now that I know I don't have to pay for it, I'm going to go out there because, you're very well known in the industry. You're known as a good instructor. In fact, I think you got Instructor of the Year last year, the year before, or something. So I think it'd be a pleasure to watch you teach. So that's my goal for this year.
Nice. Well, you just let me know if you see me. If I can remember, if I'm in the Atlanta area, I will give you a shout out for sure. And you have an open invitation, both of you, Scott and Paul, to come and sit in on it. And I'll make that happen.
Yeah.
So
I happen to be in Atlanta at the moment. That's where our headquarters is, but I'm based out of Boston. So if you're ever in Boston, I get you some chowder.
That's right. Yeah. Chowder. Yeah. Well, that's good to know. Yeah. I forgot you had mentioned that. Yeah. So, okay. Very good.
Yeah. Either one of those. And I'll come to Atlanta to meet you here if schedule permits. Yeah. I do that. Don, one other thing that's going to be different for us installers is now we have to take into account square footage, not for load calcs, because we should always do load calculations. But load calculations aside, how does the area of a room affect us now?
Well, originally I was concerned about it because, you don't know what you don't know. And I was concerned about, like everything else, propane in it and what have you, that people would get wind of this and the sky is falling kind of a thing. You're going to have to measure out the rooms. And there was a lot of conversation about that. But UL is requiring on, let's say, split systems, for example. and I'm pretty sure all systems, but split systems, let's just use that as an example here of putting a actual chart on the equipment, more than likely on the indoor coil or the air handler inside, whatever that looks like. And the chart goes something like this. So this is for split systems. I'm not speaking about mini splits right now, but because that's sized by the room and not the house as a whole. So just an example real quick. If you had let's say a 5-ton unit and it was in a 3,500 square foot house, and let's just say for the sake of not arguing, you had approximately 11 pounds in there, you would need a minimum area of 163 square foot. And that's not the room, that's the whole house. Because what's going to happen is on that ducted system anyways, is it's going to activate that sensor, and then the blower is going to engage, and it's going to go on and it's going to disperse it even more, the concentration. And by the way, that sensor is going to go off. UL required it to be no greater than 25% LFL. And until anything hits LFL, it's not even flammable. I mean, that's the very low end, when the minimum it needs before it can cause a flame. So it's 25%. And all the OEMs that I've worked for, I can't speak for everybody, but anywhere from 20% down to 12%, depending on what OEM it is, they're kind of more proactive about it. So it's not even getting close to 25%. So again, it's going to sense that, it's going to go off, and it's going to, go outside the duct and lessen that concentration. So for a 163 square foot house, you would have 11 pounds of refrigerant in there, and that would be okay. It's really, if you give that, to give that some visual there, it's about the size of a shed. I mean, I've done a lot, like you all have. I've done a lot of new construction in my life. I've done a lot of underground heating and plumbing systems, but a small house to me is 1,000, maybe 1,500 square foot track house. 163, you're not really going to see that.
No.
And the reason I try to emphasize that is, and I'm glad to see the UL is requiring this inside the equipment, because I don't want to see transition grills and all these other things going on. Now, again, with the mini splits, that's apples and oranges, because you can shut the door and they're on an individual room basis. So,
right.
Yeah.
In our training, we just started training on the M&P Essentials class. After January 1st, we started training on that. And we go over that. We go, and Scott can talk to it a lot more intelligently than I can, but we're measuring the room. Our Diamond System Builder software asks you for the dimensions of the room, and it's going to say yes or no. You can put it in there. And
yeah, top of my head, that I remember, like a typical 1-to-1 system done. Say a 10 by 10, 100 square foot room. If you look at on our chart, so 98 square foot, you cross it over, the max pounds for that system is 5 pounds, 4 ounces, just to give you a better insight.
How about mechanical rooms? What's going to change? Is anything going to change in a mechanical room now?
The mechanical room, when we talk about commercial type stuff, we're looking at ASHRAE 15. And as you probably know, 2-40 is for the residential, 2-89 UL is for the commercial stuff. So 2-89 UL, 15 ASHRAE. We have done some. I'm going to talk about refrigeration a little bit here. We've done some refrigeration jobs already, as trial runs, if you will, to take the numbers, and we've worked with some other big OEMs. I won't do any name dropping here, but we did the first of its kind in North America down in Tucson, Arizona, about a year and a half ago, using R454C as in Charlie. And so just to give you, and you may already know this, but that equipment's not out yet. So that was all a special build. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of unknown still there, but there's things that we do know. So, as far as the mechanical rooms, depending on the square footage, you'll have some kind of room detector instead of like in the coil type thing. I don't know the specifics on all that yet, because it's still kind of growing, if you will, right now. We just finished up our second project in Tucson, outside of Tucson, actually, with another organization, another coil manufacturer, another refrigerant case manufacturer. So on the bigger applications, what you're going to see is solenoid valves. What that looks like, let's say, for example, in a walk-in cooler, for example, because we're working on that curriculum right now, is let's say the refrigerant's going into the walk-in cooler, the tubes, the evap, if you will, that's going to have a check valve that's required, and then it's going to be required on the outside to have a solenoid valve, normally open, normally closed, and to isolate that. So there's going to be a minimum amount of charge you're going to be allotted in any of those reach-ins or whatever by the length of the tubes or the line set and the square footage and the space that you have there. That's still being pounded out right now. In fact, I'm working with, I won't mention their name, I just got off the phone with him this morning, but another manufacturer, it's HTPG, I'll just share it with you. And they're actually working on putting curriculum together with us, and they just got those numbers, but they're not dialed in exactly right yet. So I don't want to misspeak, but solenoid valves, like you mentioned, Paul, bringing in fresh air, taking out fresh air in some cases. It's really going to depend on the application and the square footage in the room right now. But I don't have exact numbers for you
that's okay.
on that.
I was just curious if anything had been done yet, because we have training rooms. Our training rooms have the outdoor and the indoor units together in the same place. In fact, when I used to teach the classes, I used to tell the students it's going to be very rare that you'll go on a job site where the indoor, the outdoor unit, and the controls are all in the same space. That's pretty rare to see that. But as you know, our rooms are pretty good size too, and if we just go by the square footage, we more than exceed that. And then just like refrigerant concentration levels, just the way the doors are cut and the space underneath there, you got an inch under the door. All of those things add in. So I think we're in good shape for our training rooms there.
Yeah,
for the most part.
Yeah, isolation is going to be the big thing, I think, in any application like that where you only are allotted so much releasable charge, if you will. That's going to be key right there. You're going to hear that term a lot. What's allowed to be in that area of space and what's going to be pumped down out to the condenser, right, if you will. That's Correct. The kind of thing.
Yeah, just like our MXE Smart Multi unit. Our mitigation you spoke with about the solenoids. That's what we have on our gas and liquid line. So when their indoor unit senses a leak, we close our liquid line. We go into a refrigerant recovery mode, not a pump down. Just because pump down, we go pump down using our equipment, it bypasses sensors. We go in refrigerant recovery mode. It senses low pressure. When low pressure hits a certain PSI, then we close our gas line.
Interesting.
Yeah. So if there's a leak at the indoor unit, it'll leak minimal.
Yeah.
And then everything goes outside.
Yeah. And our accumulator in our new R454B unit, a Smart Multi, Paul, if you haven't looked at it, it's much larger.
Yeah. I mentioned that a couple of podcasts ago. It's the size of a Buick. Yeah.
It's much larger.
Well, I need to sit in your classes, it sounds like.
No, you're welcome.
That's
Any
really
classes.
Yeah. No, I'd love to do that.
Yeah, we've got a training center not too far from you.
Hebron.
Yeah, in Hebron, Kentucky, right across the river from Cincinnati. So you're welcome to go there anytime.
No, I cut my teeth. The first mini split was I've used as a reference through the years is the first mini split was Mitsubishi, and it was kind of like the Honeywell mini splits, if you will. You know what I mean? It was like that's all you knew, and everybody that was a diamond dealer in my area. We would all go down to Cincinnati for training. That's what we did. Yeah, I remember well. Yeah, very much. I put a lot of those in. I put one of the first, I think it was the first one in Indiana, the ducted systems. And it was a real learning curve.
Well, learning is good, right? It's always good to learn.
Yeah.
Don, anything else? So anything else you think our audience needs to know about A2L and the transition?
Training is going to be the big one for me. If you don't mind a shameless plug, again, everything we do is free, and I'm all for capitalism. Don't get me wrong, but, Opteon.com/training, Opteon.com/training will take you directly to our training page. And there's all kinds of goodies there. We're working, really hard to build up putting webinars that I'm doing, that the team's doing. We call it the Chill Zone. And then Dr. Chuck videos, little 4-minute, whatever, easy to absorb videos, and just released this morning. They may be on the website already. I was informed that these little 1-minute Chill Zone Minute with Don Gillis are getting put on there too. But besides that, data sheets, free PT charts, you can download in color, tech support, anything you want. All these different tools that we have, you have access to. You can sign up for an A2L, email every once in a while. But that's the big one for me, Paul, is just training, because you don't know what you don't know. I never want to be the smartest person in the room.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
But
Me neither.
Yeah, I believe in training too. The more you know, just the more weapons you have in your arsenal, the better you are to do your job. So, Don, thank you very much for joining us once again. I wish you all the best, and take care.
So one thing I got to add there, Don, so you said you didn't know what your favorite chili was. The correct answer would have been your wife's is your best chili.
I'm not touching that one.
No, and I got to tell you, Don, one thing, speaking about chili, and Cincinnati's known for their chili.
No.
And I've said this before, but if we go to Cincinnati, if you come to Hebron for a class, we're not having Cincinnati chili, because I am not a fan of Cincinnati chili.
I agree with you, at the risk of being disliked by my Cincinnati friends.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm already disliked by everyone, so it doesn't bother me. Yeah, they put it on their spaghetti. I'm just not a fan of chili on spaghetti.
Yeah, I can't do that. I've tried it, and I was like, no, I can't do it.
I need my chili. I need a little bit of cheese, shred my own cheese. You throw it on there. Maybe some tortilla chips. You crumble them up and put them in there. I'm not a fan of sour cream or guac. Green onions, little green onions on there. You'll slice them up, put them on there. That's a good flavor. But I love me some chili. In fact, we got to get some chili for lunch.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Take care, Don. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, gang.